Prime Minister.
Speaker, I know the Leader of the Opposition is eager for our fall economic statement. If he really wants to see it, he could perhaps stop the obstruction of Parliament to allow us to move forward on dealing with Canadians and challenges that they are facing. But it's interesting that he brought up inflation once again. He stopped talking about inflation after years of railing about it because we did the work to actually bring it down, Mr. Speaker. We invested in programs that were there to support Canadians, but that didn't contribute to inflation. Inflation is now back down in the target range. Interest rates are coming down. That's why we can give a tax break to Canadians. That's why we're there.
Half of the Liberals are even clapping
colleagues
for
to please
Trudeau.
not take the floor unless recognized by the Speaker so that we can both hear and that people who do use translation can hear the answers to the questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, inflation is rising. After the inflationary spending of this Prime Minister, in fact, all four measures of inflation are higher than the Bank of Canada's target rate. And this Prime Minister's electioneering and inflationary spending will make it harder for the Bank of Canada to reduce interest rates. Interest rates on Canadians who are already struggling to pay for food and housing. Once again, this Prime Minister said he would cap his inflationary deficits at $40 billion. Will he do that? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, over the last few years, we have invested in measures to help Canadians who are struggling, whether it be dental care, whether it be more child care spaces, whether it be school food programs. These investments were all made to help Canadians. But despite these programs, inflation is nonetheless back within the Bank of Canada's target range. Now, we are bringing forward a tax break for all Canadians. But the Conservative Party is voting against that because they only care about partisanship.
the results are in on the Prime Minister's radical liberalization of hard drugs. He teamed up with the BC NDP to decriminalize fentanyl, crack, and heroin. He lowered jail sentences for mass producers of deadly fentanyl. And 80% of the fentanyl made in Canada is done so using ingredients that are not even regulated, but come right into our country where they're cooked into that poison, now threatening our trade relationship with the U.S. Will he reverse his radical liberal drug agenda to save lives and jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, we've seen that the Conservative leader's answer to this terrible tragedy hitting so many Canadians with the toxic drug epidemic is to stand for photo ops in front of encampments and try to use them for cheap votes. Exploiting Canadians is not the way to move forward. We've anchored ourselves in science, in working in partnership with municipalities, with frontline workers, with provinces, working with the United States on precursor chemicals, working to invest in supports, wraparound supports, including housing for people suffering from homelessness and the drug crisis. We will continue to be there for people.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The results are in. His radical liberalization of hard drugs has led to a 200% increase in overdose deaths. 47,000 people have died. The worst deaths have been in NDP-controlled BC, where the liberalization has been the most extreme. Worse, he's allowing 80% of the precursor chemicals used to make fentanyl come in unregulated and legally over our border to be used by criminals who get out because he softened the sentences. Now our trade relationship is threatened over it. Will he reverse this disastrous experiment to save the jobs and the lives of Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what has become increasingly clear through the Leader of the Opposition's little performances is he doesn't actually care about Canadians and about people suffering. He is there for a clip, he's there for a photo op, but he's not there to do the work of delivering based on science, based on compassion, based on a public health approach on dealing with the toxic drug epidemic. He is instead continuing to try to score cheap political points on the backs of the most vulnerable. That's not serious. That's not responsible, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, what is not responsible is allowing 80% of the chemicals used in fentanyl manufacturing to come in unregulated and legally. What is not responsible is decriminalizing crack, heroin, and fentanyl, and then after you see that it leads to a massive increase in deaths, then 2 weeks ago, he, the Bloc, and the NDP all voted in favor of a committee report to decriminalize fentanyl right across the country at a time when Canadians are dying and our border could be closed. Will the Prime Minister confirm that he has reversed himself and now opposes decriminalization of fentanyl?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see the priority of the Leader of the Opposition is to exploit and use Canadians who are suffering to score cheap political points. Meanwhile, we do the serious work amongst parliamentarians across different orders of government with partners around the world to address this in a way that is grounded in science, not ideology, that works with frontline workers, makes investments in wraparound services, and puts everything forward to try and save lives as best we possibly can. That's what Canadians deserve, not the kind of cheap partisanship that this Leader of the Opposition continues to demonstrate every time he stands up in this House. It is absolutely irresponsible.
Then I have
the Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I feel the Prime Minister doesn't understand how serious this situation is. The National Assembly of Quebec voted unanimously for an end to the religious exception, and the Jewish community in Quebec and Canada is afraid. Due to the federal government's lack of action, people can openly incite to violence against the Jewish community. So if the Prime Minister shows that he's serious, we will also be serious. If he says that he's willing to do something about this, we will unblock Parliament for 24 hours. Order, please. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we see that the Bloc Québécois is open to doing something here, but we would like to see that kind of readiness when it comes to other initiatives. For example, improving the healthcare system for the most vulnerable, which is blocked due to Conservative filibustering. Same thing for dental care, also blocked by the Conservatives. Or we would like them to help us be able to work on our online harms bill, C-63, which would protect people throughout the country, especially children. We would like to be able to debate all these things in Parliament, but unfortunately, the Bloc Québécois is continuing to let the Conservatives to make it all grind to a halt. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I don't think the Prime Minister liked my idea. It's a matter of leadership. It's a matter of courage. It's a matter of consistency. We have courage. I'm simply proposing the same thing as the Prime Minister already did for the GST break. We're proposing the same thing to protect the Jewish community. We will unblock Parliament. We will pass this. We will feel good about what we've accomplished. And then who knows? If the government has other good ideas that don't interfere with Quebec, who knows? Order, please. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we always come back to this matter of so-called interference with Quebec. The Bloc Québécois thinks that an initiative that would help seniors go to the dentist involves trampling on Quebec's jurisdiction. We are here to help seniors throughout the country, including in Quebec. We are here to improve old age security for seniors over 75. We are here to invest for those who need it most. And unfortunately, even when we created childcare spots throughout the country, the Bloc Québécois only wanted to talk about interfering with Quebec. We're here for all Canadians, including Quebecers.
Yeah.